thank you. We're all here. Well, thank you to the group who've lasted it this long, day 2 of Impact. I appreciate your endurance. Also, as my first time in Krakow, I have to say this is a lovely city with lovely people. But what we're going to be discussing for the next 23 or so minutes is about hubs and how those hubs can work with each other and some of those secrets for success. Kate's briefly introduced our panel. Maybe I'll just ask our panel to go around again and provide a very short, snappy one-line introduction of who you are and what you do. Can we start with...
Yeah, we can. Yeah. My name is Krysztofiak-Szopa. I run Startup Poland. Startup Poland is the biggest technology think tank in Poland, as you might guess.
Perfect. Okay, my name is Andrzej. I am a member of the board of the KFK. This is a fund of fund in Poland.
Hi, I'm Daniela Kandel. I'm a director at Startup Nation Central. We're a non-profit organization focused on developing the Israeli innovation ecosystem.
Good. I'm Asif, Faruque. I do communications for Level 39, a hub in Canary Wharf. We have 200 companies there. We're looking for 1,000 more.
And hi, my name is Marwan. I work as the startup director of Station F. That is the biggest startup campus worldwide, and it is based in Paris.
Thank you. So, Europe is a really exciting place for startups at the moment. That's my opinion. I think the tides have changed. I think it's not all just Silicon Valley right now. That's my personal opinion. But we're going to challenge that later. But I'm going to ask a question to all of the panelists, which is, what is the best thing about the startup ecosystem in Europe right now? And start with you, Marwan.
Well, what I would say is over the past few years, we had a lot of public initiatives. And what we are seeing right now, we see a lot of private ones. So former successful entrepreneurs are launching and helping the ecosystem. They are being BAs or they're launching startup programs like the one I manage. So having successful entrepreneurs helping others is, I think, something that is kind of new now in Europe over the past 5 years.
Perfect. Daniela?
Yeah, thank you. So from a perspective of outside of Europe, I think what we see is the openness. Suddenly we have a partner. Anywhere you look in Europe, there's so much interest to work together, to innovate. They're looking at new models and new ways to engage, and that is wonderful time to collaborate.
Great. Andrzej?
Okay, I think the startup ecosystem is growing rapidly in Europe. There is a lot of public money pumped into the system, and we have some success countries, like especially, Scandinavian countries. Poland is somewhere, well, not on at the top of the list, but we hope we'll change this position in future.
I think you will. And you?
I have 3 things. Can I name 3 things? Okay.
Go on. We've got 20 more minutes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. The thing number 1 is that you have the trend of entrepreneurship is emerging also in the central eastern part of Europe, which has not been that active before traditionally. It's something actually new and exciting also for investors. We see a lot of interest from foreign investors. Another thing is that the digital single market is more and more of an actual thing that makes the market for digital startups here bigger and accessible more easily. And the thing also, what Andrzej said, is the amount of public investments done into startups and innovation, which makes it kind of more competitive for private investors to get engaged as well, or more motivating.
Well, that's really interesting. That takes us to our next point, which is the level of engagement that the public sector should have with innovation. So, Andrzej, this is a question for you. You've been at KFK for, how long have you been there for?
Well, I've been for 2 years now, and it's the fact that public money are very important in Polish startup ecosystem. According to the last report that Julia's foundation prepared, 81% of all transactions on the Polish startup market were financed with public money.
Is it working?
Yes, I think it is working because it allowed this public money allowed to create several funds that then invested in case of KFK. We created 17 funds and where we matched public money, 50% public money and 50% private money. We created 17 funds, and these funds invested in more than 200 companies. So it is working, and there are some new also programs that will be developed with public money in future.
What about private sector? Let's talk about the role that private sector can play. Marwan, we were just discussing before we got into the stage the genesis, the background behind Station F. Now you have absolutely no, I understand, no links with the government. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And how is that working?
Yeah, to explain a little bit about what Station F is. So it's a pure private initiative. You can check online. It's a big, massive campus. And behind there's just one guy, one founder. His name is Xavier Niel. So he's a French entrepreneur, a telco entrepreneur, and also a super active investor. So it's purely private. It doesn't mean we do not work with the French government. So if you come at Station F, you will see something we call the French Tech. The French Tech is a public initiative that gathers all public resources, public services around entrepreneurship. So we welcome the French Tech team, and they come with at least 30 public services around visa, customs, subsidies. So we want to gather and to mix private and public resources.
And you know, speaking of mixed private and public, I get the impression, Daniela, that's kind of where you're coming from in your position. Is that an accurate representation?
So we're a nonprofit organization. It's private resources going into this. What we do is partner with the government very much. So we work with different government agencies, but we are not funded by them at all. And the reason for that is actually to maintain our non-conflict in the ecosystem. So we are in the ecosystem for the ecosystem, and the government has a lot to give. And the fact that we don't take their funding allows us to collaborate much more, actually.
So I think it's safe to say the summary is that it's public sector government still has a very important role to play in the development of a startup ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I just add to this because when you look at Poland, it's a very different story than what you have in France or Great Britain. Maybe not Israel, we have more similarities here. But, you know, like 20 years ago, there was no venture capital in Poland. So, of course, you need some extra resources for bootstrapping the whole industry of venture capitalists and educating, creating new general partners who know how to manage fund, who know how to scout startups and you know, how to negotiate deals with them. So, who could do that if not some public investment, right? Like our hypothesis is that if not public funds that went to boost venture capital, and these were mostly European Union funds, Swiss funds, and some Polish funds, probably they might have not been any venture capital today here.
But also private market is growing because in Poland we have now not only public money, but some business angels are more and more engaged in the system. And now we have also crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding platform that is called BizFund. That is also a place where you can find money for startups. Now there is 100,000 euro that you can get without supervision of the financial authority. But this will be increased, I think, generally in Europe due to some changes in European law, and up to 1 million euro you will be able to get through these equity crowdfunding platforms.
So, talking about this access to funding, remind me, what would you say for an emerging business right now, a startup business right now? How easy or difficult is it to get access to funds in 2018, and what's the trend been like?
What I'm saying is it's kind of easy now to get some BN seed funds. I mean, at least in Europe, having the 200 and 500K, if you have the right metrics, the right KPIs, you can have it. You have all the VCs on the continent now. The biggest challenge is going above, trying to reach the Series A or Series B for the continent, I mean. So sometimes you have to talk to other kind of VCs in the US or other continents, but the seed stage and kind of Series A stage is kind of doable now in the continent. And also you have great BAs as well. The past unicorns we had in the continent are now the new BAs for our startups.
But are they still throwing money at American startups? 10 million here, 10 million there. Yulia, you've been in California for the last few years. What has your experience been like there?
So Silicon Valley has more money than anywhere in Europe, I think. And naturally, it also creates these bubbles and the cycles of bubbles bursting and then raising from ashes again. Somehow they survive these cycles, and this is how it works. So, for instance, but when you compare Poland to Silicon Valley again, for instance, a typical seed round in Poland is 125,000 euro. And a typical seed round in Silicon Valley is $1.6 million. So you know, it's an order of magnitude greater. But then when you look at the quality of startups, Silicon Valley startups and the ones who are raising rounds in Poland, I would say that they are not that different when it comes to technology, skill sets, intellectual property. And the only thing that is really different between here, Poland, and the Central Eastern European mentality and this American way of doing startups is sales skills and business skills. And I think, you know, getting back to the broader scheme of how we can create hubs, I have very Central Eastern European perspective, obviously, is that we should invest more into breeding this business development skills, into sales skills, marketing skills, so that we can be as pushy as, you know, Americans.
I'm quite obsessed with this idea of hubs having industry focus, and I believe that's what gives hubs strength. So my focus, my interest has always been around Israel and how they've developed such a reputation for developing and creating great cybersecurity products. And having such a great cybersecurity technology ecosystem. What's the story there? Have you experienced that as well, Daniela? What do you think?
Yeah, so the cybersecurity ecosystem is one of the strongest in Israel. But the interesting thing about Israel is that we are actually very diverse. You have innovation coming from cyber, moving to water. There's this high density and a lot of funds, as we talked about. I think that's a global trend. And you see, we have expertise in different sectors, and we're a tiny country. Our whole ecosystem is 300,000 people. But we still attract the highest venture capital per capita in the world, more than anywhere. And we're very strong in cybersecurity, but agriculture, digital health, agri-tech, digital health, fintech has become very strong. Industry 4.0, which is mind-boggling. We looked at the information and the data of last year. In 2017, 10% of global funding, VC funding, that went into Industry 4.0 technologies went into Israel. When you look at predictive maintenance, it was almost 30%. Now, if you know the Israeli economy, we're a tiny island economy with no industry, no market in that field. But the beauty of what's happening in Israel, and it's very unique to other hubs that are developing around an expertise, is that diversity, is that ease that we go and we move between markets, between different sectors and between different industries, which is, again, very unique to the structure of the country.
So diversity is key. Marwan, do you echo that point? Do you see any specialism forming in Paris, in France, or?
Well, yeah, of course. In Paris, France in general is famous for having great devs in AI. So we have many AI centers in the country, and many GAFA companies invested to develop their AI centers, like Facebook, Google, and Samsung just lately. And we have some programs around AI and data. So we have a Facebook program. We have a Microsoft AI program at Station F. And also all the coding school we have, for example, there's one that is truly great in Paris. The name is 42. So it's a tuition-free school. You have to apply. If you're selected, you don't pay anything. And you can be trained and become a developer. And many of them are kind of highly looked by startups and companies.
One more question before I move on to both Julia and Andrzej, which is, how is Poland going to be the best nation it can be in supporting entrepreneurs and startups? Does it need to focus down? Does it need to diversify? What's the Polish perspective?
It's a great question.
Big question.
You know, this is a Polish specialty right now. When we look at what startups in Poland do, it's mostly big data analytics, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and then health tech, med tech, all kinds of life science. So it's pretty broad, actually. And I think, you know, like right now with the government being a little bit more maybe interested also in developing strategies for artificial intelligence, because, you know, if Macron did it, then of course we have to do this as well. I think for Poland there is a chance to identify this competitive advantage by selecting the niche where we are really good at, and where Polish people are really good at is algorithmics and AI and analytics, you know, with all this logical mathematical tradition of Poland dating back to the beginning of 20th century. And also when you look at the number of STEM engineers yielded by a country each year, then Poland plus Ukraine plus Hungary plus Slovakia yield as many STEM engineers each year, or even more, a little bit more than the United States of America. Right. So I think this is some kind of key competitive advantage that could make us really.
I think most of our funds invested in ICT and IT. I think this is, as you said, this is area where we can prevail in our region at least. Unfortunately, we don't have many life science investment in our portfolio. But I hope this will also change.
But the National Center of Research and Development has.
Yes, this is another program, but we'll see.
So look, moving on very quickly. We have 2 Polish people. We have Israeli, French, and the UK here. Are we all in competition? Are we competing for something? Is this a zero-sum game? Is this a winner-takes-all?
We're not in competition because I have many startups who are having developers and IT guys in Poland, for example. Okay. So that's how you have to develop today. You have to have different teams in different hubs. And we have many startups in France. They kept their dev and IT guys in Paris, and sometimes they open a new HQ in the US with marketing guys, with sellers. So you need to be able today to have different teams in different countries. So zero-sum game for me.
Zero-sum game for you?
Yeah. I mean, if you need to have international startups from day one, you need to have developers in this country, marketing guys in another one. So there's no competition. You need to be able to.
Everyone helps everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a non-zero sum.
Non-zero.
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 Sorry.
Thank God. Yeah. What about from your perspective, Daniela? I know that collaboration is at the heart of what you're working on. Yeah. So clearly, you're not going to agree with me, and I don't agree with it anyway. But you don't agree that it's a zero-sum game. How are you working with other hubs?
So I think we can't win alone. Innovation is a global game. We need to partner. Innovation crosses borders. It's not a regional thing. And more than that, it's proven that diversity promotes innovation. It creates innovation. You need the different perspectives. You need the different understanding of markets, and you need the different skill sets. And that's what creates innovation. That's what promotes innovation. Israel specifically is a very unique structure because we're such a small economy and such a small market. We create a lot of innovation and in a diversity of sectors, but if we don't have partnerships, if we don't create collaborations, we don't enjoy that innovation. We can't do anything with it. So as an organization, most of what we do is creating partnerships with global parties anywhere and everywhere, because that partnership creates value to our partners, which then comes back to us. Sure. So it's really a win-win, and together we increase the pie instead of competing.
This is interesting. I want to come back to something specifically, which is the platform idea, the platform project, but I'm going to just quickly move on to Andrzej and Julia. Collaboration is key, but I get the sense that there's an economic incentive to the work that you do, which is job creation, productivity, supporting the economy. Are you looking outwards as much as you're looking inwards, or is it, how are you developing the ecosystem here?
Outwards versus inwards. Can you clarify what you mean?
So would you, for example, be inviting other startups from other nations to come and base themselves?
Yes, we do. We do invite startups from other nations. Don't worry.
And how much of your focus?
We have a special program now because, coming back to your question, I don't think we compete, among others. I think to some extent we compete with our neighboring countries and to Ukraine and Belarus. So because we are trying to attract some people from there, scientists and startup guys to come to Poland and create startups here. So
I would add to that the government has realized that there might not be enough deal flow for investments here pretty soon, and the unemployment rate now in Poland is around 4.5%, right? It's like the lowest it has ever been. So you can imagine that hiring people under these conditions is pretty hard. So I think around September this year, Poland is launching Poland Prize program. Yes, exactly. It's modeled after French tech ticket. Yeah. So it's a program for foreign startups, other nations, So they will come here, that's the goal, set up their operations here, get funded by the Poland Prize Accelerators. I think the landing, amount of money for landing of the company here is 50,000 euro per company. So, I mean, for Polish conditions, it's a decent sum of money. And then, given the fact that there are so many new venture capital firms emerging right now in Poland, they will automatically get into the pipeline of deal flow for these VC funds.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Poland is very much open for business, very much participating with the rest of its neighbours in the European Union. I wish I could say the same for the UK. But going back to collaboration, Daniela, the project that I've read about, this platform sounds like a very unique way to approach collaboration with other hubs, with other areas. Could you give us a summary of this and how it works?
Sure. So what we've done in Israel, the platform it's called the Startup Nation Finder, where anyone and everyone can connect to any player in the ecosystem. You can navigate the ecosystem easily. So if I take out my phone, I can find any company in any field that you're interested at any given moment. And I can also reach out to them. And the goal of this was to reduce the friction and collaboration. Anyone knows what's happening in the ecosystem. They know who they should be talking to. And they can start communicating and collaborating. So it really reduces the friction. What we've done is we managed to create such a valuable platform with the most accurate data. Our companies are engaged, our investors are engaged with us on this platform. It's a collaborative initiative. We're running it, but it's a joint effort of the whole country. We're looking for other countries who are looking to do the same thing in their ecosystem. We want to give them the same tools and create a partnership, learning from each other. There are best practices around developing ecosystems that today each country is running around, learning from each other, developing that. But we're not sharing that knowledge. And again, we're still pretending to look at it as if it's a zero-sum game, and it's not. And you can even see that locally. In Israel, we have different hubs, and they can compete, and they do compete on many things, right? We're small, it's a small example, but you can take it and scale it to Europe, or within Europe in any country. You even see that in different regions within the country. But there's a level of collaboration that's much wider and much stronger than what we see in other ecosystems. In Europe, for example, and that's an important part in the evolution of our ecosystem.
I say that's a unique project and a unique piece because from my personal experience of working with startups for the last 10 or so years, I always felt that the places I go to, they are so focused on themselves and how to improve their own ecosystem. So this, for me, is a very unique proposition. But obviously, after hearing from Julia and after hearing from you, it sounds like the borders are much more open than I realized, and the appetite for collaboration is much higher than I realized as well. I want to jump to Marwan quickly, because Station F has a unique model in the sense that you're not looking to make money.
We're not. We're not, because it's a pure private project, but we're not making profit. We plan to be break even. And to give you an idea, so the founder of Station F invested in total 250 million euros just on this project. And in terms of collaboration, you mentioned it, we, on the same spot, we have 1/3 of the programs. So in total, we have 30 programs, 30 startup programs. So when you apply, you have just to pick the right program. 1/3 of these programs are managed by big corporates from the US, from Europe, so like Facebook, like Thales in France, or Ubisoft. We have 1/3 are managed by schools, business school, coding school. 1/3 are managed by startup organizations. So again, all of these programs, they are not competing with each other. They have to share assets. They have to do workshops for everyone. So that's quite unique. And you have some competitors on this in the same building. I mean, you have an office with Amazon. You have a program managed by Microsoft. You have also another office with Google, and they are on the same spot. And they have to share expertise.
So why are you not trying to make money?
It's not the purpose. We want to have a great ecosystem, so we need to be startup first. So all we do is defined by their needs. We want them to grow, and we just want to have successes. And so we're not taking any equity, any shares. We just are here to provide resources, and our KPI is just startup success. That's it.
Let's zoom out a little bit and speak about the other places in the world where there's an emerging ecosystem that we can look to as a model for success. So I think it goes without saying that San Francisco, Silicon Valley has held a reputation for a long, long time of being the mecca of emerging technology. Is that still true today? Julia or Daniela?
No, I mean, Silicon Valley is a unique animal in this ecosystem. It's very different. But what's happened is suddenly we understood that you can do that outside of the US. You don't need to be in the US and you don't need to be in the Valley. And we're seeing that everywhere. Berlin, UK, Poland is, we're seeing it. Chile, huge program. Colombia is developing. In Africa, we're seeing things. Anywhere and everywhere you look, there are new models, and it's actually, there's a big question mark if the Valley will be able to compete. The costs there are insane, the valuations are very high. So I'm not sure.
You know, like venture capital in Silicon Valley has started in the 50s of the last century. So that's why they have this image of Mecca of entrepreneurship and startups. And obviously there is a big market for startup services. If you go to Silicon Valley, you have some B2B or software as a service solution. You can easily reach to Oracle, to Facebook, to Google, and everybody else, and perhaps get acquired very soon. So exit your startup company. And we don't have this anywhere in the world. I think the Silicon Valley is a very, very unique place, and nobody will ever be able to clone exactly what has happened in Silicon Valley with Stanford and semiconductors and these generations of Draper family members who keep investing in Skypes and so on and so on. But of course, there are new areas that will somehow or might disrupt the venture capital ecosystem, as we know, like ICOs and blockchain and everything that we see with cryptocurrencies and how they change the way investors start putting their money into innovation in new companies. So I would say this might be somewhere where we're going to see a next Silicon Valley-ish hub emerging.
Yeah.
With the emergence of new technologies which may disrupt the model which Silicon
With
Valley has
venture
held
capital, exactly.
for so long.
Maybe the question is whether we need, for instance, in Poland, one specific place, like Silicon Valley, or just we can, develop a startup ecosystem and startups everywhere in the Poland. Of course, we have startup funds concentrated in a few places where we have technical universities like Warsaw. Kraków is also very strong, and Poznań. But maybe it's not necessary now, where most startups are working in ICT or IT technology, where you can work everywhere. You don't have maybe to concentrate all activities in one place. Maybe this is.
It's a tactic sometimes. If you're an entrepreneur, you have an early stage startups. If you want to get higher visibility, and if you don't want your tech to be stolen by big companies, go on another market. So we see many American entrepreneurs, they are coming to the UK, to France, to Germany, because it's a way for them to be visible in front of VCs, in front of their customers. So,
look, while you've been talking, I've just come up with a really fun question. So we're going to ask the question now, and everyone, I want you to have a think about this, which is, if you were going to start a business today, which country would you start it in? Okay, so I'll ask the panelists for where and why, and then we'll do a poll for the audience. Julia, if you're going to start a business today, which country would you start it in?
You mean like in terms of registering a company or doing actual business?
You can't say the Cayman Islands or Luxembourg or something.
Well, I'm going to keep my patriotic face and say I would do this in Poland.
Very good.
Yeah, of course, the same. It's I would like to make my own business in place where I live. So I'm in Warsaw.
Daniela.
I'm going to be boring and I'm going to say Israel. But the reason is the smart money, lower valuations, every huge company that you need in your vicinity, and so much experience around you that it's the best way to start and scale from there outside.
Okay. Marwan, where would you start a business?
of course, I would say Paris, but I would say also don't be stuck in one country. So you start in France, you have the great resources, you have great VCs, great startup programs, but think international from day one.
And I think, in this today's world, we don't have these borders. Of course, countries compete between each other. And what Daniela has been painting, the beautiful picture of collaboration, is beautiful. But when you look at countries, they do compete all the time. They compete for taxes.
Let's wrap up with our minute left. A quick poll of the audience. I know it's a predominantly Polish audience, so a show of hands for my audience. If you were going to start your business today, would you start it in Poland? Put your hand up for yes. Leave it down for no. Not bad. Good, right, so 45 seconds left. I want to go around our panelists and ask them a final question, which I've just thought up right now, which is in the areas you represent, the hubs you represent, what does the startup ecosystem look like in 10 years? Let's go for 10 years. 10-year vision for Poland's startup ecosystem in
Okay,
25
in
seconds.
10 years there will be around 20,000 innovative companies in Poland and roughly around 300 exits on
Great.
the local stock exchange annually.
Perfect. Andrzej?
Yeah, I would like to have we have a few unicorns, and that Poland will be somewhere, at the top of the list of the most innovative countries in Europe.
Great. Daniela?
I have no idea, but it's going to be amazing.
I like it.
I
Marwan?
would say diversity. 50% of the startups founded by at least one female founder.
Amazing.
Very nice, very nice. I thank you to all our panelists and to our audience. Thank you for participating and listening to us. A round of applause for everyone. Thank you.